The Christian fundamentalist will many times tell you that for Christ to enter your life and reveal himself, you simply have to give yourself over to the faith. Well, stay tuned and I'll give you 3 reasons why rational people cannot go by faith alone. How many times have I been told, not just by fundamentalist Christians, but Christians in general, that you have to just let go? I've been lectured that I need to stop thinking so much, quit researching, cease trying to find the answers, and simply accept the story of Christ's resurrection as it stands. Well, I have 3 main reasons why my mind won't do that, and these contentions probably hold for atheists, as well as agnostics and general skeptics. But the first thing we have to address is, whether telling me just to let go and accept all of Christ's miracles, as well as him being raised from the dead after crucifixion, is really fair to begin with. Because whether you believe the New Testament literally or symbolically or what have you, according to the legend, which nobody put the quill to the papyrus on until 50 to 100 years after the fact, Christ's own people didn't even believe him, as he lived among them. Peter's faith was so weak after they took Christ away that he denied him 3 times. And Judas and doubting Thomas were part of his clan. They were witness to all his prior escapades. According to scripture, doubting Thomas didn't believe him even when he rose from the dead and appeared right in front of him. He had to stick his fingers in his side and hands to be convinced. And Judas gave him up for a few silver pieces. Christ must have not had that much of an impact on him. But yet, 2,000 years later, the Christians, and especially the fundamentalists, tell me I should believe based on a bunch of texts that were written 50 to 100 years after the fact, in a civilization that was hardly civilized and illiterate to begin with. And as I've said in other videos, I wish I could. I wish my mind worked that way. It would make my spiritual life so much simpler. And as I said in the beginning, there's 3 tiers of my so-called skepticism of why I can't simply jump off the cliff and hope the loving waters of Jesus Christ are below me. The first tier is a tier that every atheist will use, as well as agnostics and other type of skeptics. It's science. For how long did we believe in the Old Testament until finally science proved that it was nothing more than fables? How long did people believe in Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark? But as science developed, we can conclusively prove that the book of Genesis isn't accurate. Not to mention, science pretty much shows that there's no such thing as a virgin birth, unless you want to consider artificial insemination of some sort, and a near-death experience doesn't nearly equate to being raised from the dead after an elapsed time of 3 days in the tomb. I'm pretty sure that science will tell me you can't take a few fish and loaves of bread, wave your hand and have them magically reproduce to the extent where you can now feed a small stadium. I can show you the laws of buoyancy that will tell you that a man cannot walk on water, and that spells and chants can't cure someone of blindness. Now, the argument from the fundamentalists is usually, I don't believe in all that science stuff. That science is always changing anyhow, so how can we put any faith in it? Yes, that is true. Science is advancing. But as it advances, it does lay down certain truths that aren't going to be alterable even 1,000 years from now. For instance, we know the Earth is round, not flat. We also know the sun doesn't rotate around the Earth. We know the effect of gravity. None of these truths are going to change 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, or 10,000 years from now. And as science progresses, more and more certain truths are laid down. Evolution is not a debate. We have the transitional fossils, contrary to the flat-out lies that many of the apologists state on the matter. So yes, science is always going to be a tier which I use to question the supernatural. And the second tier of our skepticism is going to be historical documents. As I keep saying, we have no authorship on the New Testament scriptures. If you ask an evangelist who wrote the Gospels, they're going to look at you condescendingly and say Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That is a lie. It's a lie from them, it's a lie from their pastor. Because the historical fact is we don't know who wrote the Gospels. We have no authorship of the original apostles, any of the disciples, or signed authorship from any of the friends or acquaintances of them. We have thousands of different manuscripts of the New Testament. We have absolute proof by comparing manuscripts that there were mistranslations and heavy influence by whatever culture was translating it to begin with. Contrary to what William Lane Craig, Mike Licona, Lee Strobel, Josh McDowell, and all the apologists keep saying, we do not have definitive proof of any sort of accuracy of the New Testament. The prophecies in Isaiah give a general vagueness that anyone could have claimed to have fulfilled. So we don't have scientific backing and we don't have historical backing. In the third tier to my skepticism is my thorough understanding of human nature. The Christian and Christian fundamentalists will claim, how can so many people believe the tale if it wasn't true? That it never would have lasted thousands of years unless there was validity. What are you talking about? People believe all sorts of things. People followed a man named Jim Jones down south and let themselves be poisoned with cyanide and Kool-Aid, hence the term drinking the Kool-Aid. Joseph Smith claims he was visited by an angel who gave him gold-plated tablets sent directly from God, resulting in a church being formed, which now has over 16 million members. You got Pentecostals in their church mouthing gibberish, and not only the people doing it, but everyone around them thinks they're speaking in a foreign language. The Muslims think Muhammad ascended into heaven on a winged horse, and dozens of members from a cult called Heaven's Gate committed suicide because they thought that would allow their souls to enter an alien spacecraft and be taken away. Not to mention, in the time of Christ, people believed in all sorts of mysticism. They believed the Roman gods interacted with man. The king always had a few magicians roaming around, and explanations for many daily events being supernatural was par for the course. So really, what's one more resurrection to entice the people? So the next time any Christian or Christian fundamentalist tells me I just simply need to let go and believe, that it's easier just to give in to the faith, I'm gonna say no. It's not easier, it's harder. It's harder to disregard reason, logic, science, and the severe lack of evidence for what you're telling me happened. And again, I'm waiting for that stellar theologian to prove me wrong, with something beside the tired old arguments that are invalid. Because until you do show me something historically, scientifically, or even derived from basic common sense, my skepticism will remain. But if you'd like to read a book that you know is fiction, check out my novel The Second Fall, an offbeat apocalypse sure to offend the fundamentalist. On Amazon now, link is in the video description as well as the banner, and hit the subscribe so you can come back next time as we once again take the sword of reason and reality and thrust it through the heart of ignorance.